The end-of-year tax statement is just that, a year-end statement that the donor can use for their tax return. There are two versions available, printed and emailed. We will discuss the printed version here, and the emailed version will be covered in a separate video. The format shows the donor's name and address and a list of their gifts for the date range that you specify. It also shows which gifts are charitable or tax deductible and which ones are not. The template does not, by default, include your company's name, address, or logo, but tech support can add that for you at your request. Also, some of your donors may have asked you to not send receipts during the year, and you have then checked the suppress receipts checkbox on that donor's name record. Denari will produce an end-of-year tax statement regardless of the status of that checkbox. To run the statements, we click on Correspond and then End-of-Year Tax Statements. And we'll slide down to the bottom of the page. The first field we see here is the Must Have Given At Least field. This requires you to put a number here. If you want to restrict your mailing to say only those who gave more than $25, then put a 25 here. You don't need decimals or a dollar sign. If you want to send them to anyone who gave anything, put a 1 here. The next field is the relative date range, and it's usually the easiest to just choose last year. But below are the user-defined start and end dates, and you could use that to specify a date range. Some Denari users send a tax statement midway through the year to update donors on their giving, and you can use these date fields to limit the statement to some time period. You don't need both a relative and user-defined date range, just one or the other. The donor account starting and ending number fields allow you to send a statement to just one donor by putting that donor's account number in both fields, or a range of donors if needed. The Only Donors In field refers to name segments. You could create a name segment that identifies a group of people to whom you want to send tax statements. A good example might be if you were a U.S. company but have Canadian donors. You may want to restrict this statement to just your U.S. donors, and you can use a name segment to do that. Create the name segment and select it here, and Denari will only produce statements for the name identified by the segment. And by the way, there is a slightly different Canadian version of the tax statement. Contact tech support to discuss those options. The 4 header lines allow you to put 4 lines of text into the bottom of the statement. Tech support can also add text permanently to your template if needed. The letter field allows you to first create a letter body by clicking the plus sign and then letters. This will appear at the top of the statement prior to the list of gifts. We suggest that you keep this short since the statement lists every gift and tends to be a long one. You can also produce labels and/or envelopes when you run the statements. When you choose something here, Denari will put 2 files in your inbox. The statement label order field will also allow you to select an order for both files. And finally, the Only Bounced Donors field applies to only the emailed version and will be discussed in a later video. To run the statements, click the Submit Request button at the top. Denari will put the file in your inbox in PDF format. And one big note here, because you are sending statements to almost all of your donors, the size of the report is very large. And that is complicated by the fact that other Denari users are producing statements all at the same time, more or less. The process can slow down Denari's performance dramatically for everyone, so the end-of-year tax statements are scheduled to run during the night. So if you click the Submit Request button today, you won't see the statements in your inbox until tomorrow. Now, let's go back to the Correspond button. And here we see the end-of-year tax statements test. We click that and then click on Print EOY Test. Denari will produce a file now in your inbox. In other words, you don't have to wait overnight for donors from the month of January only to give you an idea of what the statement will look like. The only catch here is that it won't include that letter if you select one, but you will be able to see the rest of the statement and give you a chance to contact tech support if there are any issues prior to running the entire set. This concludes this video on end of year tax statements. If you have any questions, please contact tech support through the help button at the top of Denari.